Chapter 2, Breaking Light. And we start in darkness. Perfect. The next time I woke, I came to more gently than before, and for a long moment, swaddled in the comfort of a soft bed, cheek resting on a pillow, I thought I must be at home. Not my flat in New Albion, but home. Sounds filtered in from the kitchen, and the smell of something delicious lingered in the air. My brain took that information and convinced me I was at my parents' house. I think that seems reasonable. That Mum was cooking breakfast. That I would wake up and everything would be normal. Instead, all I saw were a ton of plants, and I was like, nope. When I opened my eyes to the dark room, the strange round bed and shadows of plants looming in front of closed windows and doors, reality crashed in, bringing a sense of heartbreaking loss with it, and the same headache pulsated with indignance behind my eyes. Yeah, how is she going to recover this time? Is it just going to be sleep? I don't know how handy Lance is with his medical knowledge, but we'll see. It wasn't quite the same screaming pain as before, but a lingering dull throb. Well, that's good news. For a moment, I just tried to breathe around the painful constriction of my throat. Mum was far away, and I wouldn't be seeing her soon. I rubbed my eyes and tried to quell tears that threatened by paying extra attention to the sounds coming from the other room, and making note of how I felt. Even apart from the pain, my eyes felt strange. It was an uncomfortable feeling that wouldn't go away no matter how much I rubbed at them. For the moment, everything else hurt less, somewhat. How long did I sleep this time? My nanosystem was still disconnected, making it impossible to check the time or date. Strange. I could have been unconscious for a day or a week, and I'd never know the difference. With a soft groan, I rolled over, expecting agony again. But no. Even when I moved, I didn't hurt as much as before. Nice. I sat up with slow caution this time. There was still pain, but not the sharp daggers that made it impossible last time. My arm and shoulder still ached. The leg was stiff, painful. I could tell that walking would be an adventure. Deep breaths were uncomfortable, but no longer sharp and torturous. Given how I felt that day and how I felt when I first woke up, I felt suspiciously well. Of course I was glad to be recovering, but didn't this mean I'd been here a while by now? Mum and Dad must be worried sick. I had to find a way to contact them and get back to civilization. My hand strayed to my eyes again as I peered around the room with more care than I had last time I'd been awake. I remembered getting the impression there were a lot of plants, but there were more than I remembered. It was practically to the point of the room becoming an indoor garden, right? I didn't mind it, but it made me wonder about my host. What sort of person was he? Beyond someone who loved plants, and who picked up injured strays from the waste to nurse back to health. He told me before that he lived here alone, and he'd seemed pretty young, maybe a little older than me. What did he say his name was before? Lance? I wonder where the name Lance comes from. I assume we'll find out at some point. If he lived here alone, then it was him in the kitchen. Singing. Oh? He sang during the drive here too, I think. And he was cooking. And was a good cook, if the smell was any indication. That thought made my stomach pang loudly. And I realized how hungry I was. I imagined it had been days since I'd eaten anything substantial. Right. I definitely needed to get food. I moved my legs over the edge of the bed with care, taking a moment to get my bearings before I attempted to stand. My legs were far too shaky for my liking. Yeah, probably need some food in you, and you haven't used them in however many days. I had that weak feeling of having been sick for a while, combined with the one leg still hurting like hell when I put pressure on it. It took far too many trembly, limping, and uncertain steps to reach the door. Much brighter in here. I clung to the frame as I blinked against the light of a large living space with a kitchen on the far side. And so many more plants, hanging from the ceiling, growing in little terrariums on the window ledge. And beyond the glass, there was something else that captured my attention. The rosy hues of the twilight wastes. The scenery outside looked so beautiful and strange it took my breath away. I couldn't pull my eyes away from it. I'm really in the wastes. Hello. You got your little jacket thing going on now. Nice. Oh!
You're awake!
There was a clatter in the kitchen, drawing my gaze back to Lance, and a tremor of panic went through me at the sight of him coming my way. But there was just worry on his face.
Here, I'll help you to a chair. You haven't recovered enough to have your full strength yet. You should have called out instead of getting up. I'm not sure you should be walking yet.
I'm okay. I wanted to get up. I accepted his arm as Lance helped me to the soft, round chair a couple of meters away. When one of the stiff leaves from the nearby plant almost jabbed my eye, he sheepishly pulled it far further from the chair. Lance crouched in front of me, expression still concerned. It seemed like the only one I'd seen him make, but I took the chance to commit his face to memory this time now that I was alert enough to do so. Those shocking silver eyes were so beautiful and made me even more curious about him.
Do you remember my name?
Lance. And I never told you mine, but... My voice faltered as, for a moment, I felt I was forgetting something. I shook it off and smiled at him. Oh, did you forget that he knows your name, girl? I'm Morgan, though.
I'm so glad to see you awake again, Morgan. I've been worried about you, though I hoped you'd wake up enough to eat today. You were awake yesterday, but still quite groggy. I could only feed you a little porridge. You've been surviving off just that much for days.
I admit, I'm extremely hungry.
I haven't been able to get much food in you since you arrived, so I can imagine. I was going to bring it to you in bed, but if you'd rather eat out here...
I think I'd like the company, if it's okay with you. And I do have some questions.
Then you can ask them over breakfast.
I glanced out the window, wondering if it was really morning. I couldn't tell the time of day out here by the lighting.
Everything is almost ready, so just give me one more moment to finish up.
I watched him head back to the kitchen to finish cooking, and I took that time to organize my thoughts and what I wanted to ask him first. I had a million questions, but I should be thoughtful about what I said. Breakfast, as it turned out, was an elaborate affair. There was soft flat bread and a thick lentil soup. There were poached eggs with a garlic yogurt sauce, small tomatoes and cucumber slices with white cheese, honey, fresh orange juice, and hot tea. Damn, I'm hungry. It was all a bit much for someone who had been subsisting on a few bites of porridge here and there when Lance could force it into me. But it was delicious and comforting, and Lance assured me if I didn't finish it, everything could be stored and reheated so I should eat however much I wanted. As we talked, I learned it had been about 4.5 day cycles since Lance had found me. Far fewer than I expected, given what I had presumed to be the extent of my injuries and my current state of healing. Yeah, that actually sounds faster than some other routes, and I think you had a lot more injuries this go-around. Although, like, once you got here, you weren't, like, constantly trying to escape, which is interesting. I would have expected to be worse off a mere 4 days after that accident, which made me wonder if the stress and exhaustion had made it seem worse than it had been. To think I believed I was dying. I should probably be grateful my injuries hadn't been as bad as I thought. 4 days was still a lot, but it was also a relief to know I hadn't been missing for 2 weeks. I needed to contact my parents regardless, though. But I didn't know how to bring that up. Without asking, I had no way of knowing if it was possible from here given the lower nanite saturation in the wastes. Many Nomos couldn't access the net without an interfacing device, which was one reason they remained so isolated. Lance never mentioned how far he was from a settlement, but surely he had some sort of communication device somewhere.
How is the meal? To your liking, I hope.
Oh, yes, it's wonderful. I can't believe you cooked all this yourself.
Well, you learn to do things on your own when you live out here like this. Though it took a while to perfect the rose jam.
I couldn't begin to tell you how to make any sort of jam, so I'm impressed no matter how long it took. Lance took a spoon of said jam, spreading it over the toasted flatbread. I didn't even know you could make jam from roses. My gaze went straight to his hands, noting the fine lines around the joints. They were subtle, but definitely visible. Cybernetics. Both hands, or it could have been the entire arm. I wondered about it. When I looked up at Lance again, he was peering at me over the top of his bread as he nibbled it. I flushed and looked away, realizing I'd been staring. It's all very delicious. But how do you come by all this food? Eggs? Lentils? If you're here by yourself...
I grow some of it in my greenhouse, but I have synthesizers I can use for things that can't be easily grown. There are Nomos groups that come here to trade as well.
Are we near one of their cities? Your cities? I'm sorry. I'm still a little fuzzy on who you are.
I'm not one of the Nomos, and we're quite far from their nearest major city, Kinnisi. There is a smaller town a bit closer.
Eh? Abandoned cities. A colloquial name for the Nomos cities and settlements in the Twilight Wastes. It is fueled by the idea that the cities in the Wastes were abandoned during the years-long fighting during the Civil War, and after the war ended, their locations had moved and the Wastes were deemed off-limits. Most people in governments aren't sure of the exact coordinates of places like Kinnisi or other Nomos cities. Alright. You're not Nomos? I thought they were the only ones that live in the Wastes, though.
Well, that's mostly true. There are a few stragglers, though. Like me. And like you.
Stragglers, huh? I suppose the word worked for me, but I came here under very specific circumstances. I wondered what Lance's situation was. Probably also pretty specific. That said, he must know I came from the domes, because where else would I have come from? With his wording, I wondered if that meant he came from the domes too. How much has he figured out about me? He had asked nothing, but he must have questions for me too. He'd found me that badly injured in a drainage system, and there was no one else around. That had to have puzzled him. Was it possible he had also realized I was an Esper? I've been wondering how you ended up finding me that day. Is that drainage system you found me in close to here?
It's not close, no. Quite the opposite, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the wastes are large, and sometimes it's necessary to travel long distances to keep an eye on things.
Keep an eye on things? What does that mean?
I happened to be in that area when I thought I sensed someone nearby. As it turns out, that was you.
Yeah, but you already know her name, so you'll forgive me if I don't buy that entirely. Sensed. Are you an Esper?
I am, yes. I thought the hair and eyes would make it obvious.
I had thought they seemed like Fade.
Like your hair.
My hair is... well, that's a long story. And an old one. It's from an incident when I was a child. Something called nano-overgrowth. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I'm familiar with it.
I was part of an incident in primary school. It affected quite a few children. Even so, I am an Esper, even if the hair is unrelated.
I know. You were using your abilities some while you were unconscious.
That's... possible?
It is, though it's uncommon. The body is equipped with methods to keep the phoric system dormant during unconscious states.
Okay, so she was still using sigh while she was recovering. Dang.
There are always exceptions. And you were at the tail end of a power surge, from what I could tell.
A power surge.
It happens sometimes when an Esper first awakens. It's a period of rapid and spontaneous growth of psi ability. Though it can also happen during times of emotional stress, even for experienced Espers. I discovered that singing to you kept you calm enough to put a stop to it. So after you shattered one pot plant, we were able to protect the others that way.
That is so cute. He's just like anxiously singing like, please don't hurt my other plants. Please stop smashing my other plants. I shattered one of his pot plants and he sang to me like a child. I love it so much. On one hand, that was a little embarrassing. On the other, it was sort of sweet he'd even thought to try that. Did you ever sing to your little brother, Lance? I gotta know. And if I'd had any doubts about his motives, they disintegrated on hearing he sang to me to calm me down. Sorry about your plants.
Don't worry about it. At any rate, to get back to the previous explanation, I sensed your presence and went to investigate. That's how I found you. You lost consciousness almost as soon as I arrived. I had no choice but to bring you here. There wasn't anywhere else to treat your injuries and care for you. As I said, the nearest city, Kinisi, is quite far, and while there is a town that is nearer, it was still faster to bring you here.
How bad was I hurt? At the time, I really thought I would die. But it hasn't been that long, and I'm feeling better than I should if my injuries were that bad. Lance paused, his expression thoughtful. One of his fingers rubbed his lower lip as he contemplated the answer to that.
Well, I'm not a doctor exactly, but your injuries weren't minor. I spent the first 20 hours quite worried for you.
That's vague. But maybe I didn't want to know the details. You said the place you found me isn't close. How far from there are we?
It's about 800 kilometers.
That far? What in the world had taken him 800 kilometers from his home? Exactly what would he need to check on so far away? I was 800 kilometers from the tunnel and had no way of knowing how far the tunnel was from the car accident. And I didn't know how far I'd driven before that. With my nanosystem off, I couldn't find my distance from New Albion. On the one hand, that was upsetting, and on the other, it might be the best for the time being. Whoever sent that retrieval bot that attacked me in the tunnel probably knew about the crash site by now. I could only assume it had been relaying information back to them. Being that far away from everything could only benefit me. At the very least, it would give me a little space to breathe for a while. Still, I sneaked a look at Lance. He'd driven a stranger 800 kilometers to his home and cared for them for 4 days. Wasn't it unusual to not ask anything about me? Yeah, that's why I'm like, did Magnus reach out to him and was like, yo, take care of this girl? If you run into her, she's like heading, like, you know, last heading we have of her is going out here, and then like the bishops have lost her, so keep an eye out. And he's like, all right, drives around. Ah, there she is. That's my theory right now for why he was there. He didn't seem uninterested. So was he just trying to respect my privacy? Or waiting to broach what he had to know was a sensitive topic until I fully healed, maybe? I was grateful not to have to talk about it for now, but it also felt suspicious. What had he been doing in that area? Just who was he? Our eyes met, and he smiled again. I flushed and looked away, having been caught staring yet again. I realized I haven't said thank you for saving me back then, and for treating my injuries, and caring for me the last few days. Given the fact I didn't smell like rancid drain water, he must have cleaned me up as well. He certainly changed my clothes, considering I was wearing what seemed to be a long, loose shirt of some kind. Given how it swallowed me, it must be his. Adorable.
That isn't something you have to thank me for.
Of course it is. Even if you felt it was natural to do it, I'm still grateful. I'd be dead if it wasn't for you, so I'm obviously going to say thank you.
Ah.
Something flashed over his face like surprise. He was silent a moment, as if thinking about what I said, before a slow smile spread over his features again.
You're right. How strange that it's so natural to reject something like gratitude.
Ah, that's the king side of him, being like, interesting. Why did I reject the gratitude?
In that case, you're very welcome. It was the obvious thing to do for someone in distress, but I'm very glad I could help.
I'm sure it wasn't easy to take care of me all this time.
As I said, I'm no doctor, so I looked up a lot of information on how to treat such injuries. I suppose it was a learning experience in a way.
Looked up? So there was net access out here. Of some kind, anyway. Like in his brain. I had no way of knowing if or when my nanosystem would come back online. At some point, I'd have to ask him about contacting someone in the cities. But that set me on a spiral of questioning when I should try to get back. As soon as possible? Should I wait until I recovered more? Who should I contact first? My parents? Endgame? That detective? Wait, You gotta wait on that detective girl. Chill. Was a mere 800 kilometers enough to keep me hidden from Espers? Could I be endangering Lance by staying here? There was so much to think about.
Morgan?
Yes?
You appear to be lost in thought. Are you alright?
Sorry. I'm fine.
You still need to rest more, but I thought you might like to look around first. It's a fairly small habitat, so I'm afraid there's not much to see, but if you're curious, I can show you. Of course, if you aren't up for it.
I was pretty tired, but it might be a good idea to get to know this place a little. And I couldn't deny I was curious. My situation aside, I was in the ways. A place I never thought I'd see in person. Confident or cautious? We are a confident lady. And I will accept the tour of your house and greenhouse and plants. I wanted to look. Even if I just took a quick walk around. If I didn't go far, I thought I could make it. I was tired, but much less weak now that I'd had something to eat. Probably a good idea to move your body a little bit too. I'd like that, I think.
Only if you're feeling up to it. You don't have to push yourself.
I think I can manage.
Then let me clear away the dishes first.
I can help with...
No. You should rest. Not only are you still recovering, but you're a guest. Save your energy for the walk. At the very least, I'd like to show you the greenhouse. I think you'll like it.
You really like caring for plants, don't you?
They're interesting.
He paused thoughtfully as he gathered up the dishes and remaining food.
It's satisfying to watch something thrive under your care. And all plants are unique as well. Some require a lot of direct attention. Others are fussy if you intervene too much. It's interesting learning all their quirks. And it's relaxing. I've always enjoyed it.
My father's the same way. And my brother. Oliver always said that it helps us stay connected with the world.
Yes. I like that. I agree with it.
It's something you can lose sight of in life, I suppose. That we're not just in the world, we're a part of it.
Yes. I agree with that as well.
After he finished cleaning up, Lance hunted down a pair of shoes for me to wear. He said the wind kicked up too much debris, and he didn't recommend walking without shoes since sharp objects could lurk in the sand. I had to admit a part of me wanted to just sink my bare feet into the ground, though. Just to feel the dirt beneath them. But I slipped the shoes on and we walked to the door together. I probably looked ridiculous in my strange baggy shirt and two big shoes, but of course Lance said nothing about it. He didn't hold on to me as I walked, but stood nearby as if he expected me to crumble at the slightest hint of tiredness. And there's this beautiful place again. It was strange standing in his front door looking at the environment in front of me, everything painted a warm rose gold. So familiar and so foreign. And the wind. As soon as I went out, it caught the edge of the baggy shirt and almost blew it up over my waist before I could hold it down. With my other hand, I desperately tried to catch my hair as it whipped around my head. Lance stepped up behind me without a word, catching all the hair together in his hands bit by bit. Like, I'm just gonna braid this real quick for you.
I should have tied this back for you before we came out.
Is it always like this?
Sometimes it's not as bad. Many days it's worse. It never dies completely. There's always a steady wind across the waste from the desert to the ice, then back again. You get used to it.
I wanted to look back at him as he tied my hair into a messy bun, wondering again about his history. How long did it take him to get used to it? How did he end up out here? Where did he come from? His accent was a little unusual. I couldn't place it. But he didn't ask about my history, so I didn't feel right asking about his. Oh my god, she looks so cute. Man, this guy's so talented. He can grow plants, he can cook, he can sing, and he can tie up a girl's hair into a cute little bun. Ugh, I'm in love. I was unprepared for Bun Morgan.
There. I don't think it'll hold for long, though. I'm not very talented at this.
It's alright. I appreciate the effort anyway. Lance took my arm and led me towards a nearby greenhouse, walking slow enough for my halting steps to keep up. He pointed out the pool for swimming, and an additional building for storage, a workshop. He also had a small observation dome. But I was more captivated by the lake, and the distant hills, the low sun on the horizon, and mournful call of the wind as it swept through the landscape. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen.
Morgan?
I realized I had stopped in place to take it all in. We're not emotional. And he's not alone now, he's got you, girl. Let's be flexible. It's just so beautiful. All of it. I never thought I'd see it in person.
It is beautiful. I never tire of looking at it, even though it never seems to change in noticeable ways. Immense. Timeless. Though I know, of course, that nothing is truly timeless.
Yeah. But it makes you feel tiny, doesn't it? It's funny. I always thought this planet was tiny. So small I wanted to go somewhere else. But now I'm standing here and it's so big. It's like realizing it was just me that was small all along.
There is nothing wrong with being small.
Thank you, Lance. As a short person, I appreciate that sentiment. I love it.
There are many things in the world that are small. Some of the most beautiful, in fact. It's one of the great mysteries. You can look at the endless horizon and crave the beauty there while missing all the beauty at your feet.
Does living out here change everyone into a poet?
If that were so, it would do everyone good to live out here for a while.
Maybe it would be anyway. At the very least, I think it would be eye-opening for many people. Despite everything else, it was eye-opening for me as well. Ah, the greenhouse! Let me see. Very orderly. Holy lettuce. My goodness. I love these hanging baskets. These are so cool. Nice, nice. I like it. Lance took me to his greenhouse after that. A multi-roomed building with a low ceiling and all sorts of plants. There were vegetables, flowers, succulents. It was humid inside, and the sharp, pungent scent of wet soil filled the air. Lance set to watering some terrariums, but he told me to tell him as soon as I got tired. It was such a beautiful place I wanted to stay. I would have stayed longer than I did, but he was the one who noticed me swaying as I watched him work. And in what I suspected was typical Lance fashion, he immediately abandoned his task and carried me back to the house. So cute! It was embarrassing to be carried that way, but I let him do it without protest. He was warm and comfortable. And maybe after everything that had happened, I wanted to be cared for just a little. Admit that you're a fan of the carry, girl. It's okay. You're among friends here. At least for a while. I didn't realize how much the little activity I'd done had tired me out until Lance set me back on the bed. I sank into the blankets, wincing at the pain that had already crept back with a vengeance. Lance sat with me for a little while, then brought me a cup of hot tea. I fell asleep halfway through it, thinking that tomorrow I would tell him more about where I came from and why he found me where he did. He hadn't asked, but I needed to tell him. Because I needed to ask him what I should do next, and how I should get home. Tomorrow. I fell asleep to the sound of him singing softly in the other room as he watered his plants.